So at the start of the year, I was going really hard in the gym. Like I was going every single day. Even on my rest days, I would just go to the gym and walk on the treadmill because I wanted to make sure I was going through those doors every day. And the reason was because I didn't want to be one of those people who, at the start of the year when that New Year's energy is high, they say, oh, I'm going to do this thing every day. And then, as time goes on, you start to fall off. Eventually you're like, all right, bro, like, it's March. Like, I don't need to still be doing this. I ain't got nothing to prove. You know what I mean? Well, let me tell you about one of the last times I went to the gym. Last as in most recent, but also last as in I have not been to the gym in quite a while. So at the gym I go to, there's a personal trainer. We'll call him Benny. Not using his actual name because, I do aspire to one day go to the gym again and I'll probably see him. But Benny is really cool. He's kind of an old head. He reminds me of the kind of uncle you might have who, likes to tell jokes and mess around and maybe isn't the most politically correct, but, he's cool, right? He's cool. He's the kind of guy who makes you feel comfortable as a newcomer to the gym. He'll always greet you and make you feel welcome. And honestly, when he's not there, you can feel his absence because usually you can hear him having a laugh with other people in the gym as well as whoever he's training at that moment. So one day, I'm in the gym and I'm getting ready to start my workout, looking for the weights I want to use because no one ever puts the weights back where they should be in this gym. You have the friggin' 5 kilogram next to the 42 kilogram and it's like, all right, well, I don't know what kind of eldritch horror is doing this. Like, anyway, I'm looking for my weights when Benny taps me on the shoulder. Now, he'd been talking to this other guy sitting on a bench who I think he was training and he brought me into the conversation by asking, Neil Armstrong? And, I was a bit caught off guard, but I was like, Neil Armstrong? Yeah, like first man on the moon, right? Yeah, I know him. Yeah. And then Benny says, oh yeah, you believe in that, yeah? And I'm like, believe in like the moon landing? Yeah, you believe that actually happened? And so I say, well, I mean, I don't really have to like believe in it. Like it happened. Like we know it happened. And then Benny turns to the guy sitting on the bench looking like he got caught in the middle of something he wasn't ready for. And he says to him, see, this is what I mean, yeah? This is why it's effed. And, of course he didn't say effed, but, use your imagination in it. So I looked at him and I was like, wait, you don't believe we went to the moon? Like, ever? Like, not even after that? Bro, how are we getting to the moon? And before I could answer, he said, so you think they actually filmed it on the moon, yeah? Like, the tape, you think that's real, yeah? And I was like, well, yeah. And then he said, well, who put the camera there then? And I was thinking, well, I mean, if they could put a man on the moon, I'm pretty sure they could figure out a camera, it's not rocket science. Well, so Benny believes the moon landing was faked. And this guy who I think he's training just looks confused. Like he doesn't even know what to believe. He just came in here to get some gains and now he's entered some kind of weird like re-education program. So I ask Benny straight up. I just say, wait, why do you think it's fake? And then he says, control in it. They want to trick you, which I wasn't really satisfied with as an answer. But at that moment, an older lady in her like maybe 40s or 50s comes over because she overheard us talking. And she looks at Benny like, are you saying you don't believe Neil Armstrong went to the moon? And Benny's like, yeah, it didn't happen. But there were scientists and peer-reviewed studies and all this research that went into it, that we have access to. It was well documented. I don't know what that accent was. That accent just turned into some like, I don't know, generic foreign accent. She was British. She wasn't even, but Benny still wasn't buying it. I was glad at least to have this like lady on my side who seemed confident rather than this guy sitting on a bench who was like, well, I don't know. I mean, it might have been faked. I don't know. So at this point for me, right, I was just curious. So I asked Benny, I said, what standard of evidence would you require to believe the moon landing was real? Because at this point, I still don't actually know why. With all the evidence we have, it's like one of the most well-documented events in history to the point where we have movies about people related to the moon landing that weren't the people that landed on the moon. Like, why is it with all that he doesn't believe it? Like, what would he need to see to be convinced? But he doesn't answer the question. And instead, the lady kind of goes on about how there's, videos and interviews and whatnot. And then Benny throws this one out there. He says, oh, you guys are just brainwashed by the media, innit? You just believe whatever they tell you. I bet during COVID, you guys were all inside wearing your masks, innit? So at that point, I'm doing a Tim Allen. I'm like, I don't know how we got here. Like, I guess it does track that, someone who's into conspiratorial thinking would, I guess, have their hang-ups about COVID and 2020. And he's not wrong that mainstream media isn't necessarily the best source of information. Certainly not exclusively. But like, what, COVID didn't happen? Like, bro, I was inside for something. So this man doesn't believe the moon landing was real. This man doesn't believe COVID was real. So what, he just doesn't think anything ever happens? Like, but even stranger than that, I don't know what it was. I think maybe Benny saying, "Oh, you guys were just cowering inside during COVID," must have touched a nerve deep within this older lady and awakened her inner rebel, because without skipping a beat, she was like, no, I wasn't. I was going outside. I was going on runs. Besides, everyone knows COVID was a biochemical weapon developed by the Chinese to take over the West. Bro, I thought we were on the same page. She was in a different book, mate. So at that point, I was like, all right, bro, I need to get my workout started. So I left them to it. A part of me does wish I stayed just so I could see the conclusion of whatever was happening here, but I decided to spare myself. Even then though, I could not stop thinking about that conversation, and even on my way home from the gym, I was still thinking about it. And to me, what they said sounded insane, but obviously to them it doesn't. You know, to them, it's just sensible. And I'm sure some people are watching this and going, oh, what's this dude talking about? They were right. Or maybe, you know, one of them was right, depending on your preferred flavor of conspiracy or whatever. And what can I really say? You know, like, why does anyone believe anything? It's because at a certain point, they were exposed to information that convinced them. You know, and now some information is more valid than others. But, you know, more so than that, it just made me think that probably everyone has something they think or believe that sounds crazy. But because they've never had to actually say it out loud to somebody that wasn't like them, they don't know that it sounds crazy. Because we're not really that good at vetting our own beliefs, right? So a possible way to test if something you believe sounds crazy is to say it out loud to somebody else who you think is, for the most part, not crazy. And even then, it might not work. You might just be two crazy people convincing each other you're normal and you're not. Anyway, the epilogue to the story is a few days later, I was going to the gym again. It was a few days later because I was starting to fall off and be less consistent, you know, as it goes. But anyway, I was in the gym and I saw Benny. So I went up to him and, you know, we greeted each other, fist bump. I said, yo, what's good? All the usual stuff. And just as I was about to walk away, he points to me and he said, hey, you still believe in space, yeah? And at that point, I realized, oh yeah, we're cooked. We're cooked.